Hello everyone, a warm welcome to all of you to the Morung Dialogue. The Morung Dialogue is an initiative of the Morung Express, and this particular dialogue is organized in collaboration with PenThrill Publication House. And it's very nice to see all of you, and I think you guys deserve a warm welcome. So I call upon Rita to come and give the words of welcome.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of PenThrill Publication House and the Morung Express, it gives me immense pleasure and honor to welcome each one of you to this very important and relevant conversation on the topic, in the shifting world, how do we define hope and progress for the Nagas? I have been associated with the Morung Express since the beginning of my journey in journalism, although not formally. Officially, I joined the Morung Express in the year 2015, and it's been a great 10 years contributing and writing for the newspaper and being associated with the wonderful values that the newspaper stands for. And today, it is a great privilege for PenThrill Publication House to collaborate with the Morung Express on this initiative to foster conversation and exchange ideas towards strengthening the Naga community. On that note, I would especially like to extend a very warm welcome to our resource speakers, Seno Tsuhah, Dr. Villo Naleo, and Sashi Wapang Lanu, IRS. We are incredibly fortunate to learn from their insights today, who bring to us a wealth of knowledge and expertise, which I am sure will enrich the conversation which we are going to have today. A hearty welcome to our audience as well. Thank you for being here and for your interest in this important discussion. Your participation is what makes events like this truly valuable. With these few words, I wish all of us an enriching time of learning together and engaging ourselves in this very exciting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. As Rita mentioned, today's topic is, in the shifting world, how do we define hope and progress for the Nagas? It is a very broad but interesting and relevant topic, and we are in very good hands today. We have our first speaker is Ms. Seno Tsuhah. She is an educator, community organizer, and facilitator from Chizami village. With over 2 decades of work on gender justice, biodiversity, and sustainable livelihood, she has been deeply engaged in community mobilization, capacity building, and policy advocacy. Her initiatives focus on restoring indigenous food and farming systems, promoting craft-based sustainable livelihoods, and amplifying the voices of indigenous communities through participatory media. Ms. Tsuhah currently serves as the school leader at GM Government High School, Chizami, and as the honorary chairperson of NENterprise Chizami WIFs. Our second speaker is Dr. Villo Naleo. He is the Secretary of Social Concern under the Nagaland Baptist Church Council. He holds degrees in Masters of Divinity, Masters of Theology in Theology and Ethics, and a PhD in Peace Studies. His research focuses on relationship between society, politics, and the church. Dr. Naleo has taught for 15 years at Shalom Bible Seminary as Associate Professor and as Academic Dean for 3 years. He has previously served as the convener of NBCC Clean Election Movement and continues to contribute deeply to social and ethical transformations in our community. And our last speaker will be Mr. Sashi Wapang Lanu, currently serving as the Additional Commissioner, Central GST Dimapur. He holds a bachelor's degree in Electronics and Communications Engineering from PES Institute of Technology, Bangalore. Mr. Lanu successfully cleared the UPSC Civil Service examination and has since served in various capacities across customs and indirect tax departments in Kolkata and Port Blair before his posting to Nagaland. Outside his professional responsibilities, he enjoys playing the guitar and reading. He's married and a proud father of 2 young sons. So I welcome all the panelists to come and take their seats, and can we give them a round of applause? And with that, without further ado, I call upon Ms. Seno Tsuhah to come and take her time.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm somebody who has spent major part of my life in the village, in the rural Nagaland. Only 4 years. I came here to Kohima to study, and I went back, and I'm there since then. So that's been a long time. 1995, after my graduation, I went back to my own village, and I've been working there for many years now. When I got the invitation, I asked myself, do I really have time? And I happened to see that it's 4th Saturday. And I also looked at the theme of today's dialogue. And I said to myself, I really like this theme. And this is what I always try to, engage, mobilize, and also want to be part of the conversation, which is in a safe space, which is also a space created to speak the truth, but you still feel safe. So I said to myself, let me say yes. I was just looking at my years back. 27 years ago, when I started to engage, have a connection with a women's organization, a women's agency, Northeast Network, I traveled to Kohima to make phone call. And that takes me 8 hours by bus, 8 hours back by bus, so it's 8 hours and 1 full day gone because we travel by community bus. Today, I can make phone call, I can make video call, sitting in my own home, sitting in my own village. What a change. But the roads that I travel, I started from my home this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. I reached here around 9:30. Those days, today in a small car, those days, it took me, like 4 hours. That's a community bus. So I see that the road distance is still the same. And the travel time after 27 years also, it is still the same. So bad roads are like the new normals, or normals, I am just thinking, like, what do I share? And I thought I will start with this. The roads that I traveled 27 years back is lush, is green, and the road is very narrow, but it is still a very beautiful and, smooth, the average smooth of Nagaland. Okay. Today we have broader roads, but it is still taking me that long to reach our capital, and it's just 81 kilometers, or let's say people say 90 kilometers from Kohima. So that's one example I wanted to share. And the other thing is that, I'm recalling that, I've been a babysitter throughout my high school days, looking after my siblings. And the same way my elders, I don't have elder, siblings. So, I was taken care, and my siblings were taken care of by aunt and, others, relatives. And I could see that today, babysitters are our mobile phones. What a change. You give your mobile phones to babies, and then you are busy with your own work, That is the change that I can see. I also recall like packing tiffins to the school. And the kind of tiffin boxes that we carry are just aluminum box and all, but the kind of food that we bring are of different food that is from our farm. Today you visit any school and look at the tiffin boxes of our children, you will see that it is dal, rice, and then aloo fry or rampam. That is the change that I see. So today, when in the 21st century, and now we are at the first quarter of the 21st century, we see so many things, that globalization is happening, that, privatization is there, that, the polarization of culture, political systems, or economic systems is there. And one important thing is the digital hegemony. And that has also created, so many things, so many changes. We still have all these global problems, whether it is food crisis, whether it is health crisis, whether it is, climate crisis. Many things. And we are caught in that. If we look at our own Nagaland, we're also caught in that system. In the past, our lifestyles, our foreparents, when we look back at our history, we see that there is ecological integrity. The indigenous core values, reciprocity, that interdependence, interconnectedness, respect, that was there. The communal life, the social and communal life was strong. That was there. But now what we see, there is a complete alienation of especially the young generation from our roots. There is also, when we look at the past, the self-determination, the governance that our people have, today it is changed. Our governance is changed, There is this whole thing of what we call corruption, nepotism, work culture, unfortunately, is almost, is there but negligible. So we are in that, situation where we see that, all these changes, we see different when we look at science and technology, the kind of development in the medicinal fields, the kind of, the infrastructure that we see. If we look at those things, we can say, okay, this is development. Or, I don't know what you take it. How do you see development? Development, big roads. Development, big buildings, big hospitals, big dams, big power plants. Somewhere we have to look at that. Because if the young people of today's generation, if including us, if we look at development in a very glossy and superficial way, we today, if we look at our own Naga society, we are in a very challenging, confusing phase of life. Identity crisis. Earlier, our foreparents are, we practice animism. We practice, the worship spirits of the forest, spirits of the land. Today, we are all Christians. The indigenous values, the core principle of the indigenous peoples are same as the core values that Jesus taught us. But we are caught in between that. And it is something that we really have to question ourselves. We really have to look at what is going on around us. The whole thing of, cohesion, communal, as community, that has been lost. There is cultural erosion. At least in the rural areas, there are somehow we are upholding our cultural values and practices and all. In the urbans, unfortunately, it is becoming skin deep. And when I say skin deep, is that it's not just you wear a traditional clothes or waistcoat or mekhala or shawl. That doesn't mean that we are proud of our culture. When many of our young people are losing, even our own mother tongue, the language, very serious thing that we need to, question ourselves. Do we talk about the culture of, the glorious past of our foreparents? And today we lost those values. We need to ask ourselves, the cultural erosion. Nagaland is called the land of festivals. Land of festivals, I think. The festivals are very much like festival of performance. Because there is less connection. All the festivals of our land is connected to farming cycle, agriculture cycle. And here we have a generation of people who are not in touch, who are alienated. So it's something that if we look at all these things, we really need to have a very serious self-introspection. What is culture to us? And when we say culture erosion, what does that mean? Do we uphold the same values that our foreparents used to be together, used to take care of the margins? I can see even like in my own generation, I have seen that when we have something, we gather food, or when we hunt an animal. I know that's not, the one word that I should not be using of hunting animal, because everybody is against that. But those are the realities. We bring home, we gather, and we make sure that even the most marginalized person, a widow, an elderly person, his or her share is given, right? Now it is no more there. Now it is, you hunt as much as you possible, you gather as much as you possible, and everything is brought to the market. I'm not saying that, we don't have this whole thing of supply chain and, all these relationships should be there. But some of the core meanings, the core principles, the solidarity economy that our foreparents used to practice, it's been part of a living culture for many rural communities till today. But I think, we are forgetting all these important values. And if we are to question ourselves, how do we Nagas, how do we go forward? There are lots of things, and we have to start with ourselves. With ourselves. Introspection. Who am I? What am I? How am I responding to the changing situation of the 21st century? We need to understand that. What kind of food I'm taking? What kind of, knowledge, or, what kind of, activities or my time is being spent? Is it only on the screen? We have to be very careful. I know phone calls. I'm very happy that I traveled 8 hours in 1998 to make one phone call and go back in a bus, in a community bus, which is packed full, and then we have the most lovely, conversation in the community bus. Now everybody goes in their own car. We cannot stop those. But we have to see the mobile phone that came as a blessing. Is it, is it something that is a necessity? Yes. But is it necessary to control our lives? No. It has de-skilled many minds, because we just go to the internet and we just Google and then we just write down, isn't it? So de-skilling, the creativity, the thinking, the logical thinking, the heart to love, to have compassion, all those are somehow, managed by and now with AI coming in. So we really have to consider, how do we want to use the technology, digital technology? How do we want to use it? And how do we want to steer our life? We will definitely need the help of, technology, but where to give, what do I call in English? How to yes, draw the line. Sorry, my vocabulary goes off sometimes. Yeah, so how do we draw a line? How do we make checks and balances. I think these are very, very important, especially young people, because we don't know how to think. Everything we are checking from the internet. We're using AI. And then we will not be in a position even to think creatively, because machine is doing for us. We are using app, and that app is instant, and we are losing the connection. And I think we really have to consider this again. Then the other thing, I know I have very little time. Other thing that I wanted to emphasize is of the Nagas. We always proudly say that our foreparents are hardworking, honest, truthful, courageous. But today we have lost that line, almost losing, I should say. We are, caught in the system where we are scared to speak the truth. Speaking the truth, speaking honestly, saying what is black and what is white come with a big, cost. I think we are also becoming a land of apology letters, unfortunately. That you say something which is different from the majority, then you are asked to give an explanation. Then you have to come for a public apology. I think we are going in a very, very wrong path, because if we cannot accept the other opinion, that majoritarian is very common in our villages also. Oh, what majority says we have to follow. And if you are saying something different, there is a cost in it. So now this kind of spaces is important. How do we go about it? How do we see that we bring in the values? Because if we want to see the future of Nagas as progressive, then we have to see that the indigenous principles or the universal values of inclusivity, of compassion, of truthful, of integrity, of respect, those things should come, because we are losing our foot. We are on the surface, but we are losing our foot. And I want to recall again, that if we want to progress, we also have to have, coexistence with other species, with, other people. We don't want racial remarks on us. Let us also learn not to give racial remarks on others. Let us also respect. We want respect, but we also have to learn to respect, So some of the things that I feel that, the basic is that we bring these values back into our lives, into our homes, into our families, into our education system. I'm a school teacher, and I'm facing problem. I teach, and I don't teach anymore, but I look after a government school, and I am struggling for many things that we have not done in the right way as educators, and we really need to bring back these values again. And saying all this, just another 2 minutes, okay? We have also many stories of hope, stories of change, positive change. And it is important to know these stories inspire each other, learn and grow. And I have few stories, there are hundreds of it in Nagaland also, but I have this Nuklu poem who does, community conservation, conservation work, who also does, culture and education work in multiple tribes. It's not only one tribe. He's also trying to create peace corridors for animals, which comes from Myanmar side to Nagaland forest. Such an inspiring story, and he's a theologian. And I'm so happy that a theologian is doing other, not in the pulpit, but in the ground, So something that stewardship of God's creation. There is also, women-led initiatives, which is all to do with restoring indigenous food and farming systems, like the seed banks that women in Chizami have started, there are also other communities who have started. There are also like millet sisters who are also, working in different areas in Puchuri area, in Shamator area. There are also youth-led initiatives like Akopira, who runs a community library in Kwegwema. These are the stories of change, and I'm happy. So today, what we need to do is that what is development to us and what values guides our development, that is something that we need to question, because if it is only to make a big building, which will be, abandoned after some years, and which is all to do with, profit maximization, then somewhere we are going wrong. And we have to start with ourselves, myself and yourself, to explore a pathway to the future by defining our hopes and what is purposeful, progressive Naga society, that everybody of us have to come together, and we have to work together collectively, but first start individually to introspect. And I'm so thankful for this space. I want to read out a poem that I have written. It's not exact, but something, my thoughts that I've written in September. Hope is alive, hope is dream. Hope is courage, hope is action. Hope is resistance, hope is resilience. Hope is coming together, hope is bonding. Dream is hope, courage is hope, action is hope, resistance is hope, resilience is hope, coming together is hope, bonding is hope, hope is alive. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have our next speaker, Dr. Villo Naleo.
Good morning, everyone. I take this opportunity to thank the Morung Express and also the PenThrill Publication for this gathering. In order to save time, I'll read what I have prepared. Contrary to Ma'am Seno, when Miss Akang mailed me, the question was, do I have content? And so I have to recollect back some of the works that I have done. And so today I'll be addressing our topic from the historical and identity perspective. I'm convinced that our self-perception is extremely important in understanding one's attitude, behavior, and well-being of oneself. In defining hope and progress for a people or for Nagas, it is pertinent to discuss the historical experiences. Though there might be many to discuss the experiences of the Nagas in respect of our topic today, I'll limit myself to the social identity. Nagas have come across various powerful forces in the form of the British colonialism, Western American Christianity, and the Indian political statecraft, which is Nagaland state. These powerful forces have influenced and shaped Nagas in certain ways of who we are today. Though Nagas have had intermittent trade exchanges with the neighboring world, our relationship was distinct and it was need-based. Considering the civilization, mindset, and the religion structure of these forces, the three forces, they were much more matured, modernized as comparing to the primitive world of the Nagas then and there. Firstly, the British colonialism in Nagas land began in January 1832. Then the British extended the suzerainty through taxation in Naga villages, which were predominantly independent of their own village affairs. The Angamis rose to the occasion and refused to pay the house tax, which was imposed on them. The British also declared Naga territory as backward, with vested interest to administer the Naga territory with ease. Not all, but several British attitudes towards the Nagas is best expressed in their decision to take villages as part of the British protectorate. They never considered Nagas as people worthy of respect, but regarded them as savages. Nevertheless, it was under the British rule the collective Naga identity became conscientized when they tried to bring the tribes under their administration. Secondly, the Nagas were fortunate to have the gospel through the hands of the American Baptist missionaries. The American Baptist missionaries introduced Western education, literacy works, and established several centers since 1871. Several people have repudiated the attitudes of the missionaries and opined that drinking of alcohol and dancing as part of their traditions were discouraged and considered evil. Most missionaries gave dim eyes on cultural perspectives of the Nagas. We cannot blame them all. They were also, they came with sheer enthusiasm and passion. The way they brought the gospel and the enormous sacrifices they have made are laudable, but the way they neglected the cultural values that were core to the identity and practices of the Nagas is lamentable. In the course of their proselytizing, some core traditional practices that were close to the Naga identity were overlooked and neglected. No doubt, the attitude of the missionaries, not all, was dominant over the native Nagas whom they regarded as inferior, in whose opinions were unworthy of consideration. In fact, Christianity was much simpler in terms of content and practice, whereas the ancestral religion of the Nagas was much more complex and embedded in daily life of the people. Thirdly, the relationship between Nagas and India is elusive, not because of historical errors, but because of several attachments and detachments made in history. And so, three historical pointers. First, the Naga Memorandum to the Simon Commission in 1929. Second is the Declaration of the Naga Independence, 14 August 1947. And the Naga plebiscite. The third is the Naga plebiscite conducted in 1951. These historical milestones are a clear indication of Naga's detachment from India. Whereas the Haidari Agreement in 1947, 16-point agreement, and the creation of Nagaland state in 1963, and the Shillong Accord in 1975 are some attachments that Nagas have made, though not represented by all Nagas, attachments with India. So from a Naga nationalistic point of view, Nagas are not trying to secede or break away from a union that they had agreed to be part of their own volition. Nagas have therefore fought without any sense of guilt or treason against India or the British. Therefore, the Naga movement is not a secessionism. But as rightly said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts as absolutely. The newly independent India, in her newfound glory and arrogance, was in no way about to budge into the demands and assertion of some tribal people inhabiting the hills in the far remote areas between India and Myanmar. The British made a mistake of including us in the map of British India. As we can see, the primitive Naga world has been destabilized by these three powerful forces that entered into the world rapidly. This Uncle Nikitu would always say that. Though Nagas have seen themselves nothing in common with their neighbors occupying the plains of South Asia, East Asia, the question of survival, identity, and relation with these forces has become an existential reality. So looking back at what we have done, our struggle and our society, as they are today, reveals the poor quality of our responses so far to these challenges. This is not because we are the worst human beings than other people elsewhere, but one very big reason why our responses are so inadequate is because we are so unfamiliar with the many new demands on us the changing world is compelling us to handle. Most of the costly mistakes we have made and are making unintentional, but due to our familiarity with the new challenges and requirements of today. A developing society like ours is compelled to learn to respond to rapid changes in an extremely short time, what others highly evolved, experienced societies have learned over many generations. Therefore, our dilemma or crisis is truly heartbreaking and mind-shattering. It was they who did to us yesterday, but it is now us doing to ourselves. The problem is, are we too proud or ignorant to admit it? So the impact of these historical forces upon the Nagas have had several impairments, affecting the collective identity of the Nagas from then and continuing till today. This was mostly done with the alienation of the people from the land, community, imposition of political ideologies, and introducing the statehood. It has impacted the meaning of our coexistence and our connectedness and the sense of our security. So in this context, today we're asked to define hope and progress. We have one of the most challenging tasks to do, and that is to carefully respond to the past accumulated crises, which are still attached to us. The present is upsetting, the future is not very positive, but we can remain but how can we remain indifferent and not do anything? So in this, I would like to, my approach to hope is 1, rethinking faith and politics, investing our political hopes firstly in the church. There are some who are very negative about the churches today, but I want to say that the church has been there in the forefront of the Naga struggle. It was the church who took active participation in times of conflict in ushering peace. The notion separation of the church and state has been widely misunderstood. The church and the state are distinct God-given institutions, and they must remain separate. But every church is political all the way down and all the way through. And every government is a deeply religious battleground of gods. They contest to do who is doing the best, who is doing the most developmental works. And in that, these are contests or battlegrounds of gods. No one separates their politics and religion, not the Christian, not the agnostic, not the secular progressive. And it's impossible to completely separate these two. Let me give you a taste of what I mean about the political nature of the church with a story about a person named KV. KV is a political speech writer for the standing MLA in his constituency. He has written political speeches not only for this MLA, but cabinet members, party chairmen, and also other politicians. KV's work, to be sure, puts him at the center of Nagaland politics. KV also spends time with Teja, another friend. Teja, who was an alcoholic, abandoned by his wife, became a Christian, and he joined a church where KV also goes. After some years, Teja became the treasurer of the Father's Fellowship in that church. But the church discovered that Teja was stealing money from the members to support some alcoholics, so they removed him from his membership. That's when KV entered into the picture. He began reading the Bible with Teja, and little by little, Teja began to repent. Eventually, KV helped Teja stand before the church, confess his lying and stealing, and ask for forgiveness. The church clapped, cheered, and embraced Teja. KV and Teja cried for joy. Which KV is the political KV? The speechwriter of the MLA or the disciple maker? To us, in another way, which KV deals with welfare policy, housing policy, office files, criminal reforms, and education? The answer is both. In fact, KV will tell you that the political life of the disciple maker fashions and gives integrity to the political life of the speechwriter. It's the same man working, the same king ruling, the same principles of justice and righteousness applying, the same politics in play. This speechwriter has many political hopes for better laws and fairer practices, but the greatest of his political hope comes from the life in the congregation. The local church should be a model political community for the world. It's the most political of assemblies since it represents one with final judgment over presidents and prime ministers, and together we confront, condemn, and call nations with light of our King's words and the saltiness of our lives. Unlike KV, however, many Christians in Nagaland continue to invest their greatest political hopes in the nation. Bad roads and half-built stadiums, NNQF, CTN, Kanchia, and RMSA agitations, the rise of unemployment rate, the framework agreement and the agreed position, rise of abortion rates, sexual harassments in schools, etc. All these issues must help us to rethink where our political hopes really lie. Before and after the state of Nagaland, there was and will be the church. The government is an experiment. The church is a certainty. Our local church must be the first place to dissolve tribalism, clanism, any isms that is not healthy for us. Our conversation makes us citizens in the kingdom of Christ. It also places us in the secretariat, in the offices, in the NGOs. We are expected to be Christ's ambassadors wherever we are endorsed. The local church should strive first to live out justice, righteousness, and love in its life together. Then it can command its understanding of justice, righteousness, and love to the nation. If only our churches produce more KVs, we will have brighter hope for tomorrow. Second, on progress. The second point is becoming less Naga and more patriotic. There is so much of contention about who a Naga is today. The geopolitical dislocation, India and Myanmar, the imaginary political boundaries, Nagas living in Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, and Nagaland. These have splintered the collective identity of the Nagas. The disparity in terms of wealth between Nagas living in Myanmar and India is ridiculous. There is no connectedness found in this many Naga worlds, except for the use of the common nomenclature Naga. Besides that, tribalism in Nagaland is killing us. Now it is almost irreconcilable. FNT, backward and advanced, Eastern and Central Nagas, Tenimi, etc., you can name it. When we become a Christian, our identity dramatically changes and we gain a new citizenship. Suddenly, the most important thing about us is not our gender, who our parents are, where we are from, how much money we have, what color your skin is, our nationality, our intelligence or beauty, whether married or anything else that humans ordinarily use to identify one another. The most important thing about us is that we are united to Christ through the new covenant and made a citizen of this kingdom. The only way to compromise our tribal identity, to curtail our greed and our self-indulgence is in Christ. Who are you? Christian, you are a new creation, born again, an adopted heir, a member of Christ's body, a citizen of the kingdom, a son or a daughter of the divine King. When all this happens, then you find yourselves having to renegotiate how you relate to all categories. How do you relate to your parents, your colleagues, your friends, your ethnic group, your government, the public at large, even what society says it means to be a man or a woman? If being a Naga from anywhere is tearing us down, let us stop being a Naga first, but become a Christian first. We must become a better Naga by becoming a Christian. Let us remember Psalm number 2. The Psalm promises the victory and rule of Christ over every nation, military and government. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. So for me, this is the first step for progress. Having a healthy perception of Naga identity, seeing Nagas covered in Christ. Thank you once again.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Morung Express and PenThrill, for this opportunity. when I got the call from the Morung Express team asking me to be a part of this, I, just like the previous panelists have said, I looked at the topic and wow, it's something which, I mean, if you ask anyone sitting in this room, we're all Nagas and we have a stake in something like this. So anyone can actually say something on this because we're all stakeholders. But then I looked at my co-panelists and they have seen so much more, they have experienced so much more. So I thought, what would I bring to the table? But then I took up the challenge because this would require me to also study, get a little bit more deeply into what I want to say. So thank you, Morung Express, for this safe space. If someone were to ask you to describe Nagaland in one word, what word would come to mind? Let's for one moment look at ourselves from outside. Bahar Manwanbra, how do they look at us? Okay, would a word like culture, tribal, heritage, would that kind of a word come to mind? Or would a word like something to do with our environment, pristine, enchanting, exotic, Or would a word something to do with the future, potential, vibrant? What kind of word would come to mind? Last year, I think many of us would have watched a popular TV series on Amazon called Patal Lok. For those who don't know, it was a storyline which most of it happened in Nagaland, and many of our young Naga faces, they got a chance to be actors in that. Okay, and it showed Nagaland in a different light. It showed a broken society, corruption, drug addiction, guns, violence. And I remember some people criticizing it, saying, "Arey, it's portraying Nagaland in a very negative light." For me, I felt that perhaps we've held on to this image of a mysterious, exotic, all the words that you thought of, that kind of a pristine Nagaland for far too long. We've milked it for so long that we all need reality checks from time to time. The previous speakers have spoken about the bad roads. I mean, wow, 20, 30 years later, it takes us the same amount of time to get from a village to the capital. We look around, be it corruption, be it tribalistic divisions, unemployment, right? So, and our prolonged economic conflicts and political conflicts and economic stagnation has perhaps turned us from the brave warriors to anxious warriors. We are a worried lot. Rasta kiniga aze. That's a bigger worry for us, right? And if you spend time looking at popular news or social media, what are some of the things that Nagaland is making the headlines for? The lowest number of working hours, Nagamandogan as day, less than 6 hours a day. The highest amount of tobacco, gutka, pan masala chewers as a percentage of population, 30% of Nagas. The highest percentage of HIV prevalence. Now, these are the things where we are toppers. Last year, I got the opportunity to be a part of a state economic development committee that got to go to Delhi and interact with the Prime Minister's economic advisors. So these are the top economists of the country who advise the Prime Minister. So we basically went with all our shiny projects and proposals, we studied. It also gave me an opportunity to look at the economic scenario in Nagaland and also how Delhi views our issues, right? So we went, since agriculture is our mainstay, so in the project proposal, there was something related with agriculture, agro-processing, post-harvesting, all that. And also we said, okay, tourism in some sustainable way, so eco-tourism, rural tourism, blah, blah, all that. We went with a very good project proposal and we went to Delhi and we are pitching basically right? So what did they tell us? Hold on. You are already a very dependent state on central funds. 90% of our requirements come from Delhi. Apuni gan nijor pocket para 10% bhi nolai aru etia ki ani aje do, right? They stripped us bare and then they sat down with us like small kids And we did a study. Okay, what does Nagaland have? Let's look at your neighbor states, Sikkim, Meghalaya. They are also tribal states. Kini ona tahamdo progress koina jaise abningan. You're coming each time like this, right? So we sat down and we discussed two things with them. The first thing, they said, okay, if you don't have your own capital, you don't have money, what are the ways for outside money to come in, investment from outside? So idula conversation kurina jaremde, we got stuck at a point. We said, but sir, we have constitutional protection. Article 371A says that outside people cannot so easily come and take land, do this, do that. We all know that story, right? So it stopped there. And when we talk about outside money, I mean, apprehensions are there, but even look at the Indian economy. Till the 90s, we were a very closed economy, And sometimes being too closed, we may be missing out on something. So in the early 90s, even India, you opened up the economy, and that's how right now we are the 4th or 5th largest economy in the country. The second thing which we talked about, which the economists ask us, okay, then what does Nagaland have? What occurs naturally in Nagaland? So again, we went back to all the statistics. Geology Mining Department, Nagaland has 600 million tons of oil deposits. Wow, we're sitting on huge reserves of oil deposits. But then they ask us, so why aren't you exploring this? You're sitting over a lot of wealth. Because on one hand, I mean, even the wealth you're sitting today with all this clean energy fuels happening, few years down the line, it'll be worthless. You're just sitting over something. But then there also we explained to them that, sir, we have the sovereignty issue going on, and we've decided that until this is properly done, we're not going to explore this, and we have so many other issues again. So we were back. And there they poked us a little bit and said, okay, give us some estimates. I mean, me especially being from the revenue service, the numbers come naturally. So they asked us, okay, how much is Nagaland losing out on? So we did the calculation. Conservative estimates. 1,800 to 2,000 crore is the amount we are losing out every year. And if you look at our budget of 22 to 23,000 crore, that's like a good 10%. So just by changing this, I mean, from a 90% to 10% economy, you could suddenly change and become so much better. So these were the things which the economists were telling us. And on this point, I have heard our Honorable CM also make a point, perhaps in exasperation. He said that we are rich, but choose to remain poor. He said this during an interview. So in these two examples of bringing outside investment in or natural resources, the team, when we were coming back from Delhi, we also thought to ourselves, I mean, maybe we are also stuck in that position where for far too long we are saying we are different cultural heritage since time immemorial. But to them, we look like spoiled children, always depending on that 90%, but never really being willing to go back to the drawing board and reconsider our positions, right? So the challenge which was staring back at us was, how do we benefit from Article 371A, from a place of protectiveness to a place of empowerment? And in this context, economics, can it not be an economic engine rather than a shield which we always keep running back to? This has become a shield that an excuse that we are always going back to. And I'm just giving an example from economics and revenue. I'm sure you call someone from politics, culture, social, they will also have their examples on this same thing. So this was what the top economists of the country threw at us, and I don't know, maybe some among you must be looking at me and saying, idu ki sabi pakka brainwashed Central Asian listener. But see, I'm giving you the numbers and this is the dialogue, safe space. I'm also just putting my views forward because, see, the truth is, increasingly for someone like me who works outside Nagaland, has been working in Nagaland, whether it's a gathering of just the northeast states or a gathering of all over India, the fact is that some honest taxpayer in Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi has paid his taxes properly, and from that we are enjoying this 90%. Nah. This thing needs to come into our head. This thing needs to come into the conversations at some point. Okay, that we are living off subsidies, free handouts. Nijo hat pra pasina kamaina. Basically, it's not that. So this truth also, the bitter pill, has to be swallowed at some point, right? So whenever I go to any of these meetings, increasingly the question is, what does Nagaland bring to the table? Right? What does Nagaland bring to the table? The economists were also asking us, what is Nagaland bringing to the table? And if we are talking about hope and progress for the Nagas, I think this question is something which we all need to ponder. What do you and me bring to the table also at an individual level? And this would require changing mindsets, from a victim mentality, always only being the takers, never contributing anything, to perhaps realizing our own worth, realizing that we also bring something unique to the table, and then not only being benefiters, but also contributing from our side. And in all this, the answers need to come from within. We cannot keep going to Delhi or keep expecting outside people to fix these issues for us. Some of the things which I listed, these are our own issues. That's what even the economists pointed out to us. All these issues, it's your own issues. You guys go back and fix it, right? So the answers need to come from, and like the panelists before me have spoken also, in all this, the way forward would include blending tradition with modernity, right? Blending indigenous wisdom with modern contemporary tools. And I am aware that economic development, I'm talking so much revenue, economic development, but this cannot happen smoothly without our Naga political issue being solved. But again, why this economic progress is important is because look around, look at the young Nagas today. What do they care about? They care about jobs. They care about a future, education. They care about progress. They want a better life. Many are tired about the prolonged conflict. They want a better quality of life, right? So the challenge is to ensure that these protections which are there to preserve our heritage should also translate into real world improved quality of life. When I say improved quality of life, I don't just mean, again, money and material wealth. It means everything that surrounds the Naga society, be it cultural, political, social, an improved quality of existence. We all deserve that, and we owe this to the future generations as well. And in all this talk of development and progress, who ultimately benefits? See, if things remain status quo, 90%, 10%, it doesn't mean tomorrow Nagaland is going to crumble. No. There is a certain section of the society who will continue to grow rich, but the idea is for more and more of us to enjoy the fruits of development as we go ahead, isn't it? We Nagas, we have survived colonialism, insurgency, we're in the middle of that, and in fact, even bureaucracy is a system which was superimposed on us. So the way forward would look like us going back also to some of the core things that was there with us. Courage, truthfulness, brotherhood. And so the question, I've written this down so I'll read this. In the shifting world, how do you define hope and progress for the Nagas? For the Nagas, hope and progress means three things. One, being rooted in the rich cultural heritage of the past. Two, being responsive to the present day realities. And three, being boldly and courageously oriented towards a future which is self-determined. Thank you so much.
One question to each of you, very quick, short answers. How would you like to define progress for the Nagas, reflecting on the current shifting world that we live in and also for the future? What would be your definition, or what kind of progress would you want for the Nagas? Ma'am, we can start with you.
Leaving no one behind. That's the UN in the preamble, but in our community before, no one is left behind. Everybody is taken care of, especially people in the margin. And that is called progress.
For me, progress is a human endeavor, but hope comes from God alone. And I think the Western civilization, all these things, we can take the example of how they have put on their hope on human effort, on individualism, on human authority alone. And today we see the crisis that they are also facing. And I think for me as a Christian, our hope is in Christ alone. And there is a lot of rooms that, yes, we need to improve. Maybe for people like me, we have bigger rooms to improve. But there is way that we can progress. And I think, like I said, starting from our local churches, from our own individual families, we need to.
I think for me it will be willingness to go back to the drawing board and reconsidering our tough positions which we may have taken.